this session, budget session of the full board into action. If you can take, I'm like, what's the word?
Let's take some action.
Into order.
Let's do it.
If you could take it.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Boucher.
Here.
Mr. Cotton.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Hastings.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
And I am here. We are expecting Ms. Robinson and Ms. Campbell.
We are, both of them are delayed. So for next year, we should really think about either the school district's art show being on a different day or our meeting being on a different day, because it's sort of sad that the board can't attend the showcase of our students' art, and neither can administrators and staff. And that's not for you, Mr. Bouchard, but you.
No, it's, we,
What time did it start?
I heard about it.
5 o'clock.
No, we, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate, but
Yeah.
again, we could,
So
Make sure
for
that doesn't happen in the future.
We can think about that.
yeah.
You two are here to talk about the SRO. I am going to see if Mr. Dunn has anything else first, because I know Ms. Robinson and Ms. Campbell are very interested in this subject, and I would not want to begin your presentation without them here.
Okay, I'm gonna adjust my thing.
So I'm going to make Mr. Dunn.
We'll go with the budget first then. Batter up. Let's see.
Except for the ones that aren't here.
I posted the, let's see, let me get it up here. Okay, let me do the, see if I have the. Okay, the presentation is posted in your folder. I should be able to make it through this in about 7 minutes. It's just more of an overview and summary. Hopefully I have everything right. Again, posted budget in your folder. From an agenda standpoint, we'll just hit the important dates. We'll talk about budget summary, talk about positions that are in, positions that are not in. And I have proposed motions, which you can wait on, but I have proposed motion options, and then tell you where this will be posted after you vote, meaning the purpose of it is posting for the public to look at. What's going around now is the signature page that will get attached to that posting. The MS-26 is the file that the state requires us to file, so,
Which one am I?
okay?
Right here.
And then at the end, they'll do their presentation, how's that? Okay?
Yes, great, thank you.
So just the important dates, I reiterate again, this is your budget that you're working on right now will run from July 1 to June 30th. The tax assessment year, which we will find out what that all means in October of later in this year, runs from April 1st to March 31st. Your preliminary budget is expected to be passed on Wednesday, March 27th, and you will finalize your budget. I'm assuming I'm giving you 6 months notice, 7 months notice of when we will look to finalize the budget if you choose to revisit it on October 23rd, okay? And that's when, depending on if we get the evaluations from the city, which that's about what time we should expect them, because that's what's gonna drive what the rate will be, okay? A couple updates. I was not at the meeting for the food service director, but I believe it was asked the number of free and reduced applications that are approved and then denied, so you have a total number. These are the various stats that they provided to us.
I'm having trouble differentiating between all the different groups of approved and denied. Because we have 687 applied, 1236 approved, but up there we have.
Right. So
All right, I'll make a summary view of it. I'll revisit it, because they just gave it to me this afternoon when I asked was there anything I needed to update. So I will go back and redo that for you,
Yeah.
okay?
And I can imagine that applications are for families, so that would why you would have more kiddos
That's
than
correct.
applicants.
And then you have direct cert, where you get a list from the state in July, but they don't update it. So what happens is you just get what the new ones are. So as they're looking at, okay, who are the kids in our system versus the kids we got a list for, because it comes in July, kids may have left they're no longer eligible, that kind of thing, so.
So,
okay.
am I correct, Mr. Dunn, is that 1221 applied, 821s were approved for free, 108 reduced, and 292 denied, 292, 108, and 821 equal 1221?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And is the direct cert list on top of?
No, it's embedded in there. That's
It's
why I asked them
embedded.
to call it out, because it's a little deceiving to say you have 1,221 there, but within that, people that are free, there is a certain number of people that are automatic.
Yeah, can I ask
Mm-hmm.
what the metric is used for direct certification? Because we
Well, like
currently
people
don't
that
use
are
like
on
Medicaid enrollment.
state benefits,
Oh, okay.
that's why the state
Oh, so
provides
it's
us
like
the
a family
electronic
isn't
file.
on SNAP or WIC,
Correct.
and they would.
And then we
okay,
import the
cool.
file, and then they're automatically approved, so we don't need applications from them.
Oh, that's
That
great.
was also out for foster youngsters.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Okay?
Yeah.
And is that what you mean by direct certi?
And
Thank you
again,
for
that file, you get hit in July, and then once a month, we get incremental files of new people that become eligible.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't ever go back and re-update the main file that they gave us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Is anyone assisting families register for SNAP benefits if they're not already registered? Is there any way that we're saying, does your family have these benefits? Let me guide you to the correct, because then they would be, my understanding, that they would be able to, following year, would get direct certification.
Yeah.
So we already.
All I know is we help with the free and reduced application if they call, and there's certain questions about their SNAP number and SNAP, and they can guide them the right way, but that's just
I
for
can
that.
imagine
Maybe John has.
department does, though.
So yes, to your answer, Erin Care, who's the early childhood coordinator, that's part of her role from birth to 8. She works with families and anyone who's not signed up to do that. And then her and Fern Seiden meet monthly with all of the social workers, homeless school liaisons, and counselors. And between that group, that's one of their roles, to reach out to families, help them benefits and things that happen in that.
Okay. And then there was a question about what our total current debt is, $37,825,000. Okay, that's the outstanding bond debt currently. Slow compared to what you can borrow, so,
Well, we will.
true. And then the next one was this sort of information we still owe you. I had hoped, but when I was out for the last week and a half, I was not able to get to that. So we owe you a software listing. There was a question about the adequacy that I believe Ms. Walsh asked, and I was trying to recall what specifically it was as far as us getting credit for people on adequacy that might.
And
Okay,
who we are providing services or classes for.
so, okay, so we'll get that.
EFA voucher,
We gave you those new numbers.
yeah, that sunsets in 2025.
Correct. There's
So-
it's a phase out.
Yeah,
That's correct.
so
Yeah.
we won't be looking at those adequacy phase out.
That's correct.
After next year.
And then there was a discussion, I think, with in non-public as it related to cybersecurity, and Dan was going to be coming back to you. I'm assuming in a meeting outside the budget process.
Yes, it was just
Just
that
making
we
sure.
should continue the conversation.
Okay. Anything else that I missed that you needed?
Folks have other questions? We are gonna have open sessions next week, right?
You will have one Monday, and then Wednesday is enrollments.
So if there are things that you want Jack to be prepared to answer on Monday, think about it, say it here or email.
You can email, and I will provide it to them. I will not be here next week. Okay. I'll be available. She knows how to get a hold of me. I'll give you a hint. Even though I'll be
The
out of
electric
state.
leash?
Yeah. All right, high level. This slide is updated now to reflect the increase based on, not sure whose request to add the broken ground principle back, but that's because I was away. So that is in that number. So that number is now 108,008,631. All the rest of the numbers stay the same. This is a summary by object. Again, same slide as opening. The only difference is going to be in your salary and benefits line because I added the $200,000 back into the budget. This is the net result I did this in the opening presentation to show you what the money, what's impacting that you're offsetting because you're pulling money out of the reserves that we had put away in October. Because remember, we're trying to slowly let that money back out so that we keep a tax rate that's somewhat comfortable, okay? So overall, with all that, even though you had an increased expenses, you're showing a 1.67% increase. It's actually down 0.84% because there's some one-time expenses that you're having that we're offsetting with one-time money from your expendable trust funds. So that, trying to be.
Can you say that again?
If you, I am taking, you have one-time expenses
Yes.
that are being offset by one-time money coming in from your trust funds.
Okay.
So if I take the raw expense, see the column under change on the left side of all the red numbers?
Yeah.
Your budget is up 1.67%. But when I add in those offsets to expenses on the left side, you're actually down 0.84%.
Thank goodness for that foresight
From
of that.
last year.
Well, that's all you guys. I can't do it.
That's down from not what we spend, but includes the money we put into trust funds last
Correct,
year.
and you're pulling, yep, and you're pulling that out now.
Putting money
Yep.
into trust funds last year affected last year's budget.
Yes,
so-
yes, yeah,
So if you're looking at it.
yeah.
And I
And
think
that
you're,
includes the 200,000 that we put back in for principal?
yes.
And we're still down
Overall, you're down on expenditures.
Right
Yeah.
now.
right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Yeah, but the difficulty is the revenue part. So yeah, so that's, it gives you a picture as we try to stabilize things.
Jack, can I
Yeah.
just ask, I want to ask it again because we're on this slide, for a clarifying point in that it's, the revenues from trusts are only offsetting one-time expenditures, not ongoing operating expenditures. So
Correct.
we wouldn't expect next year to have some of those, to have any of those one-time expenditures in the budget.
Those particular, depends on what it is. So for example, supplies, books, and utilities, that 302,500 is offsetting curriculum. Now, there's over 2 million in the instructional trust, but there might be something, Mr. Yarlott comes in and you guys say, yeah, let's hit social studies curriculum or some other curriculum. So you might have it for a different purpose, but nothing that we're putting in here will be recurring. If-
Okay.
So to answer your point
Now,
directly.
what about the benefits line?
The benefits, we're gonna see how that works out in the way people, I mean, the last 2 times I've done this, I've wound up not having to transfer it out because of the fact I'm using it trying to stabilize that almost 9.7% increase, but you have so much turnover in people and new people that come in, cost less because they're contributing more to the benefits and they might not be getting the family plan. So we're gonna see how it works. So rather than raise taxes to offset that, you have that fund that we can kind of stabilize. So you'll know in August whether next year, we'll know whether we use it or not. But it's just there as a stabilizer right now. Okay. And then there's all the trust balances in the beginning of this budget. That's the amount that you're using. That's the amount you're transferring in. And there's what your expected balances will be. So as I mentioned in the instructional trust, you're taking that 300,000, you still have a healthy 2.3 million in there. So if, again, there's curriculum things that come up, you've run through the instructional committee and everything, that's what that's for, is to take care of those one-shots when you have those big purchases. And all of this is gonna look great when we go for the bond. Looks very, very good. We will get comments for this.
The 900, that's for the projectors, not the regular laptop.
It's for the high school, yeah.
Yes, but it's for their projectors, not for their regular laptop.
That's correct.
Replacement.
Yeah, we budgeted about 427,000 for that, and the additional 900 is to take care of projectors, TVs, whatever they decide.
Okay, so
at
those are
the
the big.
Yep.
Okay. That's-
And now obviously that's something that's cyclical. It's not every year, but that's a big expense that we'll offset with that rather than finance it or anything. But again, a lot of that money came from when you had that excess adequacy, put it away. You know these things are coming, just let it back out. Keep it smooth, okay? And on the revenue side, None of that changed as it relates because of the addition of the principal back in. So this is the exact same slide we presented in, at the first meeting on February 7th. The next slide is the one that changed. So when the local rate now will go from 1361 to 1405, or 44 cents, or a 3.23% increase. The state, no control over that. That's staying static until the valuation comes in. So you have a combined rate of 1564, or 46 cents. So that puts you at 3.03%.
What is the 3.94 up there?
That's the percentage increase from when we went from 69 million up to 71 million. That 2.7 million is a 3.94% increase in the local dollar change.
It's just another way to look at 2.7. It's not necessarily the implication.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thank
It's the
you.
percentage
It's
change
not
of
the
dollars,
tax
and the other is the
rate.
percentage
Okay,
change
yeah,
of tax
okay.
rate. So, okay?
So right now, our local,
Yep.
state, and, or our state and local combined, this budget will increase the tax rate by 3.03%.
Before valuation. Yep.
Okay.
That's what you estimate. I put in
And
a
that's estimating a
0.30% increase in real growth.
Okay.
So I'll get you what that number is. I think it's like $14 million increase. And I think the valuation's like 4.56 billion, and that's gonna go up. I put 14 million. I always try to be very conservative.
Of course, of course.
So, you obviously you see a lot of activity going on, and when you see the physical activity, that's good. The question is it ready for occupancy before April 1st? If it goes after April 1st,
Doesn't count.
you don't get it till the next one, so, yeah.
I know the city's on a different schedule than us. They're not gonna start their budget until probably right after we finish ours, but do we have a sense of what they're estimating for?
No, when I put this together in January, they have no clue. And usually, when I would call the assessor before she retired, and I do talk with that deputy city manager, say, yeah, that's okay. And they'll get much more than that. I said, I promise, I will not say, no, you said it would be this.
Yeah.
So they're in the same boat. It's all a guesstimate. But
Yeah.
I try to be very conservative, so it's helpful later on. The big thing we will not know when they give us that number is what was real growth and what was market growth. That doesn't come out until the letter we send to you all when they produce it for city council in November to say,
Yeah.
this is what residential, this is what commercial was, this is the net result.
If state aid hadn't declined, what would be the impact on our budget? Do you know, on our tax rate?
Well, I think we talked about, when you had asked, we thought we were gonna get another 700,000, right?
Right.
709,000 is 1%. So you'd
And so
be
this
at,
went down.
you'd be
to
2.23% on that local, probably, if you had gotten another 700,000 in adequacy.
But it went down, how much did you say? State revenue is going down,
Oh, 1.8?
so it's 2% of the tax rate,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah. It's the revenue that's,
Is because of state aid decreasing.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate you highlighting
I
that, Ms.
will.
Welch.
I know, thank you. I think it's an
Yeah.
important fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let our ire be directed in the correct direction.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
all right, so,
An important fact that should be included in our budget presentation for the budget hearings in case anyone comes.
Yes.
I will highlight. So, just a summary, this was February 7th, that's where we were, March 6th. This is where we are on an estimated tax impact. And then
That's it.
the positions. So, this is stuff that's in, it's already accounted in these numbers. And then I'll show you a slide that what's not in, that is where it sits, okay? So, first, same thing as that BMS teacher, the vacancy, right? That's due to attrition. The receptionist and the communication director have been in there. The BGS principal vacancy has been added back in, and the high school has requested the elimination of the 220-day assistant principal. So that offsets the director of staff and student wellness, putting 50% of that in, and adding the adjustment counselor back into the high school, which they've requested.
But does not include 2 foreign language teachers.
That would be on the
Do I
next
move on to
slide.
the next slide, Ms. Walsh?
Yeah.
So that is the staff added, reduced, budgeted. Next slide.
Can I just ask
Oh,
what an
and-
adjustment counselor is?
That's our person that deals specifically with ninth graders. She's, think of a social worker, so she works with families out in the community supporting those youngsters. It's just like one of your social workers in the.
And we don't currently have that position?
We have that position, and that position was funded with ESSA funds.
And so now we're absorbing it into the general fund?
The high school has asked that that position be part of their staff and feel that it's a valuable position, and I would totally agree. In addition to the work with families and students, she's also the coordinator for the homeless youngsters in the high school. So that's part of her responsibility.
Thank you.
And obviously from a contracted service, which you'll have a presentation tonight, is the SRO officer request from Runlet to be at Runlet. They're in. What is not in? Yes.
Receptionist position is a full year position or a school year position?
School year position.
Okay.
And what's not in are those, and I apologize, hold on. I better take this out because I'm gonna get beat up on it. I should not have put, the determination of where they go, and as you heard that night, I didn't update the slide, was not determined. I put that in based on what I thought I heard, not what they told me.
Not in actuality.
So, I should not have jumped.
So we were mean to Kim.
Oops, so that looks better. Okay,
So 587
yeah.
in new staffing?
How much, you have that split, or is that current year is split between?
Yeah, that's how it was funded, originally funded, sorry, OF 24 is originally funded in 24.
So the general fund portions from 24 were not carried over into this budget, they were
No,
taken out?
because it was a 1 year only. I know these have been 1 year only, 1 year
Yeah,
only, one,
right.
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
all right. All right, I'll do my spiel, right? Work session schedule, highlighted bar, there we are tonight, okay? You have an open session on the 11th, the high school enrollments and CRTC enrollments on the 13th. You have your public hearing on the 18th. We'll change locations and go to Beaver Meadow on the 20th for your second public hearing. You have an open session afterward, and then we hope to finalize a budget on the 27th so we can begin processing professional contracts. That's one of the reasons. You also do have something in your charter that you have to pass the budget 60 days prior to the end of the year. But the reason we do this is because we have to have professional contracts out by April 15th. And this one, remember, 5 votes, October, you need 7. All the information is posted except this presentation will be in the morning. They're all your elected friends. That's who you reach out to if you have anything, or myself, or anybody here. And this book, this will be updated and posted in the morning. And the postings will go into the Monitor on Friday. Tomorrow they'll be at City Hall, the Public Library, on the website, and here on the website. I mean, here on the building doors, okay? It's just a notice, the thing you signed, we'll do that with all the backup documentation and noticed all the well, we've been noticing the meeting, so. I don't know, it's making its way around, so, okay? That is the end of my presentation. I have proposed motions, but at this point, I'm gonna stop because you have more discussion, okay? And I'll get rid of the distraction behind you. I'll put something more subtle. A little SpaceX or something, I don't know.
Milky Way.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at you. I don't know where you want to begin. We
I-
do have a presentation around the SRO, if you'd
And
like
we
to
had
start
actually
there.
asked to flip it so that Miss Robinson and Miss Campbell could be here.
Right,
so
that's
thank you
awesome.
very
Glad
much
you did
for
that.
I will report out that the reception for Youth Art Celebration was jam-packed full of people.
Cool.
It was really, I really like that we use the Citywide Community Center. It's a great location for it. It was just families everywhere and like got to say hi to all the art teachers. So happy to report to all of you and to everyone at home that go to the Citywide Community Center. Kids' art is on display. It's all beautiful. It was a really great event tonight.
That was actually part of the discussion you missed, which was we would like to figure out how not to conflict with this in the future, so the board could actually.
There was
We
a
had
change
our
of date, though,
yeah,
wasn't
we-
there?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and we had our dates all squared away, and then things change, and you know how that works, right?
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to be there tonight. But I will say that the exhibit is open for the whole month. So if you have a few minutes and you want to wander through the community center to see the youngsters' work, it's pretty phenomenal. So I think we can open with the SRO, and Mr. Richard and Mr. Worthley asked if they could present a little bit about the SRO, and so I thought that was very appropriate for you to hear from them. So I'm going to pass it over.
Thank you, Jay Richard, the middle school principal. I appreciate the time, and when I talk about a presentation, I just created like a really brief memo, just some of my thoughts that I like to pass around and share with you. So I don't see it as a presentation, I see it as a conversation more so, and feel free to ask me some tough questions. A little bit of background about me in my experience as a school leader and administrator, if you don't mind. Quincy. Okay, thanks. Okay. My entire career, and this is where some of my bias comes in terms of I've always worked with the school resource officer in any public school that I've worked in, some time in Connecticut as well as in my previous district on the Seacoast. So when I share that bias, what I mean by that is like I've only experienced positive things and seen positive benefits from having a school resource officer in my school community, specifically in a middle school. I shared some of just kind of my general thoughts. What I'd like to share with you, just a couple real life examples that I've just experienced this week. Before I came over here today, I had a Concord police officer in the main office with my assistant principal. Literally, they're probably still there. Working through a family type situation that, we're going to work with the CPD to address. Monday, I had a situation where I had a student make a poor choice, and we needed to turn some items and have a conversation with the Concord Police Department. And, another situation in terms of just this past weekend, like a wellness check where I had Concord, a parent, one of the parents of one of my students reach out to me concerned about something, and I reached out quickly to the Concord Police Department and asked if they could provide me assistance by checking on a family, making sure everyone is okay. Part of my experience, and I want to be very clear about this, is I've had a lot of interaction since my start with the Concord Police Department since July 1st, and I want to share very clearly, they have been wonderful, great resources, kind, compassionate to my students, thoughtful. One of my challenges has been, I've met 20 of them, and all 20 have been wonderful, but one of my positive aspects that I see in terms of having a designated school resource officer in my school community is just having kind of like one connection for my kids daily during the school day, have a person that I can connect with every single morning. Anything happened last night? How did that thing turn out? Those type of things. So just some of that consistency. Some of the positive aspects that I've also used the SRO for is like community events, maybe attending an art show to show a presence. My SRO always attended my Washington, D.C. trip, did bike safety workshops, spoke in health class about substance abuse and what that means legally for students and families, present and have real lively discussions around constitutional law with 8th graders. So I'm not going to go on and on and on. A lot of that is kind of like really listed in this detailed memo. In my experience this year in Runlet, which I love, I've never had a student ever arrested in my school community, ever. We haven't had that this year either. How I see the police is, again, it's a partner to provide resources and a proactive approach for my students. Another example I'll give you this year is, again, an officer showing up about a month ago just to check on something happened in the community, showing up to my school, checking in on the student. And, this is real. After I followed up with the student after, how did that conversation go? And the student said, I'm someone who actually is thinking about becoming a police officer, and this was a sixth grader. So how I view these resources in our community, they've been role models, no different from the fire department when they come, or my teachers, or anyone here that works in our community. So I have a list of things here that, I feel like are positive attributes of what an SRO would bring. Some of the things I think about even with our new middle school is like safety planning. I don't know if you're aware or not, we've done things like an evacuation drill already. We have other important drills that we're going to practice this year. And SRO, to me, in my, again, past experience, has been an integral part of planning some of these emergency type practice drills. And I also think about the new middle school. I mean, I think it would be very beneficial to have a SRO participate in things like traffic planning, our security stuff that we're going to have in the school. And lastly, those that know me, starting to get to know me, I'm a team player when it comes to, I believe this is a K-12 district, and I also feel, and I've shared this like with Principal Blinn, that if I had a SRO, at my site daily, that wouldn't just be around the middle school resource. It would be a resource for right next door too. And I feel the same way about going in a new location with a middle school too. So those are just a couple of brief examples. Speaking with Principal Herbert, he's had nothing but positive experiences in terms of having SRO at Concord High School. I've had wonderful conversations with Quincy about some positive things and also some just general concerns sometimes people have expressed in the community. So he's been a wonderful resource for me, and I don't want to continue to kind of ramble on, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Tough questions are okay too.
Does Quincy have anything he wants
but
to say?
but you can get the question out first because it might impact whatever.
Right on. I'm just going to be very transparent.
That's okay.
I will be your toughest adversary
Yep.
on this board when it comes to
That's
an
okay.
SRO conversation, but
Yep.
very grateful for your willingness to be here
Yep.
and explain what you believe is the need. So one of the things that I requested moving into this conversation was a revisit of data around the current SRO position at the high school and how that individual is interacting with students. When we started this conversation in 2001, interactions with police were disproportionate for Black and brown students compared to the percentage that they present in the school community. So I really wanted to see how over the course of several years has that changed? Have we improved on the way that we are more balanced in disciplinary situations or the way that an SRO interacts with the student body? So I don't know if that data is available.
Not yet.
But I know we've got it.
Yeah,
I know
we
we've
got
got it,
it.
and cleaning
Got
it
it.
up, I understand takes
We're cleaning
time.
it up, right.
But I feel like that's an essential piece of this conversation that needs to be addressed before we can really make any clear decisions.
Okay.
Again, not an indictment of an individual. I understand that the current high school SRO has had a really positive, has a lot of positive relationships with administrators and teachers. My concern is participation in the school to prison pipeline and an interaction of a punitive system within an educational space. And if we're splitting hairs on math interventionists that are essential because our math scores are critically low and we're implementing a new math curriculum soon, why would I want to spend almost $100,000 on a law enforcement official as opposed to an educator, which is our primary role, is to be educating students? I understand behaviors are something that teachers feel like they need help with behavior management. So another question I have is, how are we exhausting all of our resources now before we're considering an SRO? Are our administrators, principal and assistant principals available in the hallways and in classrooms to help intervene during the day when there is potentially a behavior situation that could happen? Are our counselors doing the same thing? Are they mobile and present and within sight within the school? I don't want this position to be somebody that we just sort of like lay behavior expectations on to absolve, an assistant principal who deals with conflict. I don't want that there to be an exchange of one for the other. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So would love your insight on any of that rambling I just gave you.
Well, I think that's fair, Sarah, and I also think though, but like, I do not see SRO has any function in terms of a disciplinary person in my school community.
Okay.
An example would be, I had a student make a poor choice on Monday with something. To make a long story short, like, I would not have had this SRO involved in that situation at all. My responsibility as principal and the school leader of Runlet Middle School is to, deal with those situations, whether it's disciplinary or safety things. I do not see a SRO playing any role in terms of discipline in my school community at all.
Okay.
And I've never used the SRO to be a disciplinarian in my school community that I've worked in.
Mm-hmm.
So I have struggled wrapping my mind around a question like that, because that's how I don't see that's the role of a school resource officer.
Okay.
That's my responsibility as principal to deal with students in, I guess I should say, instead of deal with students, like assist students that need assistance and help with their behaviors. That's not a role of a SRO.
Okay.
So
So just to clarify, what exactly is the role of the SRO then?
yeah, that's a fair question too. Again, I see it as a resource for all my students right there at school. Another trusted adult in the building, someone who can help with like supervision of basic things like, out front greeting students in the morning with me. Maybe assist, as I detailed in here, like more classroom type things that I've used SROs before, where again, constitutional law is like a big one. Kids often have questions about search and seizure. Again, not my SRO searching their lockers or things like that. That's my responsibility as principal, but just talking about constitutional law in those things. A safe adult presence, in the building. I can only go on my past experience where I've seen a lot of kids make positive connections in view of SRO as a trusted adult in the building, and I would almost equate it like more of like a counselor type situation where what they were talking about, I'm not sure, kind of like that confidentially aspect of it, but many students connecting with an SRO, maybe talking about family situations, concerns about parents or siblings, around substance abuse,
Yeah.
all those types of things.
So I apologize for interjecting.
Oh, yeah,
but
no, that's
You
okay.
can see, I think you can see how based on that description, it sounds like you just need another guidance counselor. Because
I wanna
all
be-
of or like a history
Yep.
teacher, or constitutional law teacher, like I feel like all of the roles that you've explained could be fulfilled by someone that is not also employed by the Concord Police Department. Do you know what I mean?
Some of those things, but I think what you're talking about several different roles and positions, and in my experience, Sarah, I've had an SRO fill in all those several roles with
Okay.
just one person.
All right.
So
Thank
I
you
don't.
for allowing me to take up so much time.
I want
really
you to.
appreciate it.
I want you to ask these questions, and this is helpful to me too, to have an understanding of what the concerns are.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I'll just follow up a little bit on what
Yeah.
Sarah and her questions, because it comes to me and I say, what are the, to follow up on hers, what are the positive interactions, the amount of positive interactions that occur versus negative interactions? And then, what parents and community members say is just an SRO being there deters crime. Just visibly, that's something that would happen not by a counselor. But then my other question is
I think I can deter crime pretty well too when I'm walking around the hallways. My eighth graders tell me that specifically.
Not to
so
say-
I don't mean that.
not
I'm
to
talking
say
low level
not
middle
to say
school.
you
yeah.
wouldn't, Mr. Bouchard, not to say you would, but, and then you know, I look at this
Yeah.
as, you know, a very financial issue as well.
Yep.
And how is an SRO better than just calling an off-site police person? We do have to call police when there's a crime, right? We have to notify police when
Yep.
there's a crime, right?
Yep.
So, you know,
I mean,
98,000 is a lot of money.
it is I appreciate the question. I think, again, the commonality and like a common face for kids is a big deal. And I think a common resource for my staff and community as well I think that's really important. Again, I think I was pretty clear at the beginning. Every single Concord police officer that I've encountered has been a wonderful resource, but I've met probably at least a dozen, to be fair. And another wonderful resource has been Sergeant Mitchell, who was in charge of the youth division for the Concord Police Department. And he's actually given me some data from last year, and he's actually been very helpful. But so I think those are all fair questions. But Jim, I really struggle with this because I've seen the positive benefits of it in my career, and I've never experienced any negative aspects of it. So it's really kind of hard. But I would think like just having one common person that gets to establish positive relationships with kids and families that had a lot of experience where parents reached out to our SRO, not in like looking for their child to be arrested per se, but like as a safe resource. Like my kid's not getting up in the morning. Like what can I do about that? Like what's the laws around that? What are truancy laws? And you know, again, the police officer, the SRO being a resource for families like that. So I've seen the positive benefits of it. I understand people would question, you know, the cost. But I think, again, having one person, I'll give you an example, you know, just that real life example today after school, right? We were assisting a parent who needs help, like immediate help, and there's a Concord police officer. Tomorrow morning when I go into work, you know, I'll call the Concord PD, just like I did this weekend, to try to find out, you know, who is responsible, having an SRO. I've always seen the communication work very well where any officer in the Concord Police Department would report to the SRO, hey, this is what happened with your child last night, one of your students at Rutland Middle School, so I would know first thing tomorrow morning what the situation was. Yep.
I would just like to ask Quincy to weigh in on what you see as the advantages or disadvantages of this type of position.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll also add that I pretty much can agree almost word for word with what came out of your mouth for the most part. When it comes to just my role in general, I can say that my previous experience with SROs comes a lot from the consultant space. We're working with other school districts and how negatively impacted they were by SROs. So when I came to the school district and there already was one at the high school, I was a little surprised. I actually didn't even know there was one until I walked in and they said hey to me the first day, which I thought was really awesome. But since I've been here, I've actually had way more interaction with them than I thought that I would. First with Officer Menza last year, and then this current year with Officer Salmon. I could say that there's not a week that goes by that I'm not in there having some sort of a conversation, and it's from a more of a restorative conversation around students, families, overall school community, because a lot of things that happen out there leak their way into the school setting. So I can say that I've been pleasantly surprised, which I'm literally shocked by. Like, I'm quite shocked by this. Yeah, so I would say I have had, and then in addition, I'll say this first and then I'll go into current folks. Even on a few different district-wide teams that I'm a part of, there is a police presence on those. Whether it's the behavioral intervention team, there's someone from Concord PD on that. Or actually there's someone from JPP, somewhere around there. The interagency team has someone from one of those agencies, and then the district community leadership team has police presence as well. So it's not as if they're not already connected in some way, but this is, I think to his point, a more consistent touch point. So, for example, with Officer Salmon currently, I've had multiple students from, and this is with middle school and high school connections because folks have siblings. Folks are connected that way. So there's been a lot of different interactions that have occurred. She's been able to educate me on what certain outcomes can look like for students depending on what route the school decides to take, and I can share that with him, I can share that with Tim at the high school, and I have done that, which has been really great, so I've been learning a lot. Outside of that, Paige is Officer Salmon, Officer Paige Salmon. She, and I've talked to Tim at the high school about this. I feel like she is a good example of what the right person in that role can do. Whereas, because honestly, I think in a different life, past life, new life, she would probably be a teacher of herself, probably. So with her, she's really great for targeted interventions. I can talk to her as far as she can make recommendations for needs assessments for families. She can also make determinations that involve students not having to go to court. They can do different programs. They can do anger management program or something that she has, connections with in the community. As far as restorative work, she's definitely worked with a few families that we have worked with as well around navigating the legal system, especially, let's say things don't take positive changes, what it can look like down the road for students. And then as far as the continuity piece, she already knows all the players in all the conversations I'm having. So I'm not having to re-explain, oh, this is this student, that's where they live, that's what they've gotten into. She knows everything that's already going on, and actually makes it super helpful for me because I'll walk in and have conversations with students and like, how do you know that? And I'm like, people talk. And also, you put most of this on social media, so there's that as well. But, and I've actually, even on the, what's the word I guess you could say, I don't know what it is, but basically, I've been able to help her, like reciprocity, I suppose. Been able to help her with some cases as well. Whereas, for instance, there was a student at Runlet who was threatened by an individual. I can provide her with physical evidence of this. Little did I know they were already building a case against this person, so that just got added to what was already happening. So, I would say that in that instance, it actually did have a direct correlation to protecting students when they're out here getting threatened by adults in the community. So I can say that. And I think another piece that could be looked at as a pro perhaps is something that's brought up a lot is just alignment in general throughout the district. And I think it could be a bit of a shock for some folks to just walk into the high school and then have a police presence there when they've never had one throughout their academic career before. So it could be something where they have that for 3 years at the middle school, then they're already ready. They know what it looks like. They know what a positive individual in the building can look like. And at least from my experience at the high school, I'm there every single day. She is a absolute last resort as far as behavioral interventions are concerned. I've even been in rooms where folks have requested for her to go somewhere, and the administrator I was with, nope, I'm going, she's not going, why would she go? So she's not being used in that way, and also she knows many things that she's not planning on doing. She's never planning on arresting a student unless, like,
Things escalate.
whatever the worst scenario you could probably think of could occur. Let's see, right person, definitely, and I say that she's a great individual for this because she's trained in restorative practices. She's trained in, this also comes from her academic background as well. So, like, it's a bullet point that I have here, but she's trained in that. She's trained in de-escalation in an academic way that looks a little different than, a police officer in the real world, I suppose. But and that's just a number of different things. Like, she does a lot of collaboration with Michelle Speckman, the director of special education at the high school. Melissa Bacchini, who's the adjustment counselor that someone asked about before. I've been in rooms where I'm talking with all three of us about a student, about their family, in a very restorative way. So I can only speak to what I've gone through so far, but I do know that I've been told that if this does go down the route of an SRO at Runlet, that I will be part of that process of selection as well. So I can tell you I'm very hypercritical. I'm not pro SRO by any means. I'm pro the right person, positive adult that's not going to do harm, because I have consulted on what harm looks like. So
Thank you. And this is probably not a fair question to any of you, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, one of the points seemed to be consistency for families who might have kids in the middle school and the high school, and following up from things that happen over weekends. And I guess, why is it the school district's responsibility to pay for sort of juvenile officers as opposed to City of Concord, the Concord Police Department's responsibility to figure out how to develop a consistent contact and system for dealing with youth in trouble and families? And I said it's not fair, but I'm going to
Yeah,
put
but
that
I'll
out
just
there,
say, I
because I
mean,
think, a lot of school districts don't pay for their SROs, where, that they're
yes, and
funded.
the
to
Concord
poli-
School District is very unique, I would say.
And we have been very lucky in that we've had SROs. When we had this debate several years ago, one of the key factors for a lot of people was that former SRO had been an educator and a teacher, and we have someone else who has a lot of those skills. I don't know how many of those are running around the Concord Police Department. We're very lucky. We seem to be finding them, so that's great. But
I would just say, we talked about that, and specifically with Sergeant Mitchell too, is like, I know the current agreement is like a 75-25 split, where the school district pays 75% of the cost of the officer, the SRO, in the Concord Police Department. The city of Concord pays 25%. In my experience, that's typically how it works. I'm not familiar with any police departments or cities or school districts that one is paid the entire cost. But I hear you, Pam, that you're saying that. So, and I do want to share, and again, please know,
well,
I'm
it's
just
not so much the cost is like
Yep.
the service that we're looking for. Seems to me that. Well, it seems to me that they actually need a juvenile caseworker at the Concord Police Department as opposed to an SRO in our middle school. But that's, but that seems like what we're looking for is almost a police officer caseworker for certain students and families with some other role model examples in there, benefits.
Can I
in there.
build on your question, Pam? Would you mind? In addition, we mentioned consistency in that you've met a dozen officers and they've all been wonderful.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be prudent for the police department to make an effort for each officer to visit the schools and make all of their presence known as opposed to just one person? Because kids are not going to be meeting those individuals inside school walls. They're going to be meeting them when they get pulled over or when there is a domestic issue at home. They're still going to be strangers. So is it really a benefit if the SRO individual in the school is never going to be a person that would arrest those students and be the one to walk them through the system? I don't see that as continuity. I see it as somebody stepping in, taking over some roles that could be fulfilled by someone other than a law enforcement professional. And I think we've gotten lucky. We've had unicorns in these positions. And we have experiences at the high school where we have not been lucky. And we've had individuals that have created toxic environments for Black and brown students who have said, I don't feel safe with that person in the hallway. So we won't always be lucky. And kids aren't going to get to know police officers through one distant person. So
I just want to elaborate on that, Sarah, though. Like, I wouldn't allow that as the principal of my students if I had anyone, whether it's a school resource officer or educator or a volunteer, that was making my students feel unsafe in my school community. It'd be unacceptable. So that would be something that would be addressed.
Has found it acceptable in the past. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that. I mean, that's what precedent
I just
has
had to
been.
share that, though.
Of course, and I'm not. I hope my sort of aggressive approach.
Doesn't bother me.
I'm very grateful to hear
Yep,
that,
yep,
and
doesn't-
like it's not my intention to like question your integrity or what you
Nope.
believe is best for students.
Yep.
That's why you're here.
Yep.
You know what you're doing. But also from a social justice aspect of things, like this position worries me incredibly in the way that we have systems that have not been reformed, and welcoming those systems to commingle without true reform or proof of reform feels irresponsible to me.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep, and I just want to add one more comment, if it's okay, and then I'll leave it alone. But like Quincy, and I have great respect for Quincy, but when he says he was surprised that there was an SRO and how well it's worked, I appreciate that. But I want to be honest with all of you as a school leader too. Like I was surprised coming to Concord as a middle school principal that we didn't have a SRO in our school community. I'm just being honest about that.
No, that's fair.
That's not a criticism or a judgment of anything here, but I was surprised at that. Because most of my colleagues, when I say colleagues, I'm talking about middle school principals, most do have SROs in their school communities, and that doesn't mean we have to or should. All I can do is just share that I've only had positive experiences with it.
Okay.
So, and I think your questions are fair.
Thank you.
Ms. Meeker?
So many thoughts and feelings and questions. I'm going to try to organize them. So I understand that what we're describing here is a best case scenario, right? An officer that has restorative justice practices already under their belts, they're communicators, they're educators, they're academic, and they're not being utilized for a very specific skill set which they are trained for, which is, handling people that, have committed a crime and can be detained and arrested. And so it sounds like, well, we're never going to utilize that skill set. We're going to utilize these other skill sets, a mentor. And that does sound like a best case scenario. And that if it ever crossed over into any untrustworthy place, you would be there to say this is unacceptable. I have been to the equity meetings for the last year, and we have students come to these meetings time and time again. I've been to listening sessions in the community where high schoolers especially have stood up and said, I have concerns, and when I approach teachers, they're very dismissive of my concerns. My teachers don't listen to me. There's interactions in the hall that make me feel uncomfortable, and I feel that I don't have anybody to talk to. So while I understand that, I feel like, yes, the adults in that space are like, I would absolutely step in. I would absolutely understand. I would absolutely move on that if a child felt uncomfortable. I've heard testimony from kids that continue to feel uncomfortable in their space. So I just want to acknowledge that even though best case scenario and we're all doing our best, it doesn't mean that it might not happen, and that we have to be accountable for that.
Yeah.
And to assume that the SRO is just going to not have any implicit bias issues, that we can hopefully point to the data to show that we are improving in our biased practices over the last few years. Like, I'm going to need to see that data for sure, because I think the concerns of the parents then and the data then, if it's still the way it is now, then nothing is unchanged from my perspective. So that all of the potential benefits of an SRO kind of get washed away if we're not addressing that, if we're not saying, like, we fully acknowledge that this could be demonstrate unsafe, an unsafe environment for some of our kids. And we need to make sure that we're hearing that. And the parents that have, since this has gone public in this budget process, the parents that are reaching out to me like, whoa, I thought this was off the table. I didn't know we were bringing this back to the table. So I would hope for a comprehensive understanding of why it needs to come back to the table. Not just that we are hopeful that it will be a positive experience, but is there something that's missing that we need to fill that gap with an SRO? I guess is, after that whole event, sorry about that, is ultimately my question, which is, other than wanting it and feeling that there's potential good, is there a gap? Is there something missing that Runlet needs in terms of safety, security, a law enforcement presence that you think is needed now?
I think that's That's a lot to unpack.
I know, I'm sorry.
Honestly.
Thoughts and feelings.
A lot of
But-
TED
but
Talks
I just kind of want to go back, though, when we talk about a school resource officer, okay, that a Concord Police Department school resource officer, they're trained differently. They have special qualifications, background that we would feel comfortable with, working with students. No different than, a math teacher is different than a social studies teacher when you think of things. So a school resource officer has a unique training where they've been trained to be a school resource officer. There's professional development that they would be trained around, working with kids in schools. And it's a very, very different, I think, if we talk to Officer Salmon at Concord High School, I think she would describe her role as a school resource officer is very different than the role of a typical patrol officer in the Concord Police Department. So they have specific training, and as Quincy mentioned, we would select this individual with Chief Osgood, Superintendent Murphy, myself, and Quincy to determine that it was the right fit for our school community. So I hear you in terms what you're saying. Nobody has expressed those concerns to me out of concern of having SRO. I believe they are out there because they've told you that. My conversations with the small sample size of parents around this, meaning specifically my PTO, as well as my staff, I have not had anyone express they do not want an SRO at our school. Again, I think as a big picture, I think highly functioning schools, best practice schools, the ones that I'm aware of, New England League of Middle Schools, for example, is a reputable organization that we work closely with and I believe in. Those schools typically have SROs. Every community is different, but I feel like I'm rambling on now, but that's something I was, again, surprised.
So we're having a
Yeah,
conversation.
no, I
Yeah,
appreciate it. Has been kind of surprising, and people have expressed that to me. A lot of people have expressed they've wanted an SRO here at the middle school for quite some time, well before my time.
Yeah, and to a couple of things that you said. So one of the reasons why I'm even remotely on board or have been supportive is because I've talked to Jay and Tim, and both of them have said word for word, if the person was doing something that was just not aligned with what I wanted for my building, then they would not be in my building. And for me, that's something that I need to hear, because you cannot just be locked into a position where you could just stay around continuing to do harm and damage. I also have had some conversations with community members as well, and they have expressed concerns to me too, especially about the high school. But I did find that, and I'm not discounting that there are other concerns out there, but at least with the ones that they gave to me, I was able to just say, hey, that's not actually happening. I see it on day to day. I know that that's for sure not the case. They're like, oh yeah, I hear the SRO's just running down the hallway screaming at kids. I've never heard Paige yell at a kid one time. She's also not chasing anybody down the hall. What is the point of doing that? So just little things like that, I have dispelled those rumors and things, but there are definitely concerns out there. So hopefully, depending on how it goes, because like I said, I'm very much right person, if it makes sense, that more of those can be dispelled, and maybe that just has to be more community conversations with whoever is brought to that position.
So what I heard tonight, in terms of, and I appreciate both Quincy and Jay being here and having the conversation with you. I thought it was important, and we do have data. We pull it from our Swiss. They're trying to break it down into subgroups because that's important, and trying to determine the delta between kids of color and white kids, and other youngsters in our gender issues, and so it isn't just about kids of color, right? And so what I heard tonight is that you need more data, and like I said, we're working on it. And I'm happy to bring that into the next open session so that we can have another conversation. I might ask Tim to join us too, and he can give you some, his position relative to the high school. But I think you need to have the data. And, even though you're going to vote on a budget tonight, posting a draft budget tonight, I'm going to be very clear about that, you still have ample time to make decisions around this position between now and the time March 27th comes. So don't feel like you have to make a decision until you have enough information that you need to make that decision, okay? Just want to make sure you know that. I don't want you to do that, and neither do they. They want you to be obviously very supportive of whatever decisions are made. So, okay, and we'll get you that information for the next open session. I think we'll be there in terms of collecting it all.
So actually, that brings to what, if everyone good with this discussion for now?
As much as I can be.
For now. I said for now. We have an open, tonight we have to post the budget so that we can do that before the public hearings, and that requires a vote of at least 5 of us. But we do have an open session on Monday. So I know one of the things that I would like to see is what are the trade-offs to keep the budget, the tax increase where it is now or under 3% ideally. And what would we have to do or cut? What are the alternatives if we wanted to put in foreign language and or a math interventionist? So where would that money come from outside of reserve funds is what I would like to
You want
see.
that now?
I was going to give you until Monday or Wednesday next week.
I think we ought to go.
One of the things, I was
What
surprised
would
you
we
haven't
cut?
brought it
What
up
would we
yet.
cut?
I was surprised you haven't brought it up yet, but we've been working on, you
Oh, I know
wanted,
how much we would have to cut.
Hold on, Kathleen's trying to say
you,
something.
you wanted us to look at obviously staffing, right? Remember that?
Yes.
You wanted to see what the staffing patterns were based on the policy that you have in place. So we went back, we looked at all of the staffing patterns in all of your schools, tried to use the policy committee, the policy on class size as our sort of our barometer in terms of making those decisions. But we also heard from you around your concerns around the challenges that some of our teachers have in classrooms, right? We've been through a tough time with kids coming out of being isolated, right, for several years. And so we knew that had ramifications on student learning, right? And so I heard, we don't want to create class sizes so large that it really impacts student learning. I heard that last time from you. So we went back, Jack and I and Michelle went back over this past week, and we took a look at, this is the, if you look at this, we listed, if you look at the left side, down the left side is all the schools, okay? And then we compared, and I think I showed you this the last time around, a rough draft of this. We showed you 23, 24, and then compared to 24, 25, and what we anticipated the enrollment would be in those classes. So let's just, for the purpose of discussion, look at Abbott Downing. It's the first school across. Last year in kindergarten, this year in kindergarten, 23, 24, they had 47 youngsters. They had 3 sections, which gave them a class size 15.7. That holds. We're looking at, we know based on 2 things, the Davis report and the latest report we received from New England NESDEC, because we do an annual enrollment survey with them every year, because that gives us as current as we can. They've all indicated a decline in enrollment, right? So you can see that when we looked at Abbott Downing, we expect 2 youngsters less in kindergarten. But I really can't change that to 2, because that would, I don't want to have 23 kids in kindergarten, right? I don't think the teachers would like that. And nor would the learning be as productive. We know that the research is very clear. Class size matters at the lower grades. When I say that, I'm talking about primary grades, K, 1, 2, class size. The research, that it's a long-term longitudinal study done in Tennessee. It's the classic research document about class size. If you have a board and you want to read their research, the effective class sizes occurs in the lower grades. That's where you want to keep your numbers down a little bit, okay? So we want to try to do that. So you can see I didn't touch kindergarten, even though we're losing a few students. All the way across, based on the numbers at Abbott Downing, there really wasn't anything you could do. The class sizes are all within the parameters of your policy. By the way, that's down at the bottom of your page, so you can see. Remember that you did a range, 14 the lowest, the midpoint at 17 for kindergarten, and 20 is max. Your policy says no going over 20 in kindergarten. Okay, so we use that, and then we did that for every building. You can see that across the boards. We did that at Beaver Meadow. We looked at the enrollment. You can see that at Beaver Meadow, we anticipate 36 youngsters in kindergarten, and that we could do 2 sections there, and that would be an enrollment of 18. Now, that's close, right? And so knowing in my head that I have the contingency, which allows me to watch enrollment so that as July and August creep in, right, I can say, I'm there, I have to. I did that at Christa McAuliffe, as you recall. We had cut a position in kindergarten because the enrollment was down significantly. All of a sudden, it jumped by 15 students from 45 to 60, I think. And so I had to put another teacher in there. And we did. We used the contingency. That's why you have that amount in the budget, to give me the ability to do that. And of course, that's something that I would keep you informed on. I wouldn't just do that without informing you and having a discussion about it. So that's what we did across the board. And you can see that, you can see where we have made suggestions, anything like in where we've reduced, where we could, or added where we had to. So if I look at Beaver Meadow, I look at grade 2 and, grade 1, and I could go down to 2 classes, but I need a teacher at 5th grade because last year I only had 2 teachers in 5th grade, and I need the enrollment's up to 66, so I need to add a teacher there, so I'm using the teacher from that grade and putting it in grade 5. So you don't really pick up a grade, but you're just moving staff around to meet the enrollment needs. So does that help you in terms of reading
does.
this?
Yeah, and I didn't mean for us to go into this.
Okay,
now.
I didn't know.
I was trying to let us have a conversation about this is helpful, because now I think what you're suggesting is reducing the elementaries by 3 teachers as opposed to the 1 that was in the budget? Is that the?
Well, I mean,
I'm only giving you the data. The decision
number of
whether you
teachers
reduce or
minus
not
3.
is yours.
Yep.
Because you all have various opinions about what that should look like. And I think that's your
So
decision.
the color code under kindergarten, when I stepped out,
Go
that
ahead.
gray, that's the one that's in the reduction of the budget. Okay? All the ones in yellow are ones that, in some capacity, if you reduced,
Okay.
would still make you within your policy.
Okay.
They're either below or they're low enough or within it that even if you reduced it, you're still gonna be there. That's what the yellows are. So for example, if you look at the screen behind you and you took, it was mentioned broken ground 5th grade, and I lowered that from 5 to 4, it now goes to 21.5, and your policy is 25. In the middle, 28 on the high, 22 on the low. You're at 22, 1.5 if you do that. That's how we built this, but your decision if you want to do anything.
Can I just double check, when I look at the totals here and I look at number of teachers, I see a total of losing 1 teacher at Beaver Meadow. And I see losing 3 teachers at Millbrook.
But you gained one because one went to Krista McCullough. So you're up one. Remember, they got moved around.
It's a net, right?
So it's going to be net across the network, for lack of a better term. But
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see three, it's two.
right.
Anyway, that's the data that you requested, and so I would encourage you to peruse it, and we're available to answer any questions that you have. But this is what's happening, and this is what we anticipate for next year.
Now, you still have the enrollments next Wednesday that you'll hear about from the high school. We don't know whether there's anything there yet.
Is there a follow-up? You guys remember during the transportation conversation that there were some bus driver vacancies that we still budget for that we can't fill? And we had asked, like, is that number workable if we wanted to reduce a couple of those positions rather than budget for them and leave them vacant again? Am I the only one that remembers that conversation?
No.
Yeah, but if you do, they're going to go towards the out-of-district transportation. That's how we're going to be able to cover it.
Well, yeah,
Because
but
we
we're
still have-
budgeting for both right now, I think was the.
Well, if you look at that negative 664,000, I'm not
Well.
budgeting for both. That's why I don't want to budget, because I know I have a little bit of opportunity there.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be double budgeting. I'm trying not to inflate and say, oh, I want super conservative.
Gotcha.
Because I know my ins and outs on transportation bus drivers, I'm sure I'm paying it in outside service, potentially. So they wind up washing.
So there's no wiggle room.
To build off of what Kara just said, we also talked about how we have those open tutoring vacancies that we've been unable to fill. We've even reached out to retired teachers and they have been unwilling to come in. Are we still budgeting for those positions?
Those positions were out of ESSA.
Oh,
Yep.
gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's,
Yep.
it's reality.
Yeah, it is reality, and of course, as you know, that's going away.
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay,
Thank you for this information.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Dunn, do you want to show your motion?
Sure. So if you want to, say, if you want to pass the budget as was summarized tonight, that has the broken ground principle added, these would be the numbers. If you want to do an alternative, rather than keep you late, I made a backup motion that would give, all the yellow ones I'll change, but you'll give us the authority down the bottom. In addition, the board authorized the administration to adjust the budget to reflect the intent of the board's vote on the budget posted for public comment. The administration will update the motion and then update the board at its next work session. So if you say, I want to add this, delete that, I can do that, but rather than keep you and me go offline and start playing with the numbers.
Does anyone want to make any changes to the posted budget? The budget that we're voting on posting? You have amendments you want to offer? We need a motion to begin the discussion. But if anyone, well, I guess it's all a work session on the budget. So if anyone has a motion they want to make now, or we can move on one of these. Option one. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'm still trying to read. I'm trying to figure out the difference between the two motions.
The only difference, they're the exact same, except that bottom. Because I'm anticipating the yellow numbers would change. Anything you tell me you want to adjust, I have to change those three.
Oh, I would.
And rather than
prefer
keep you going,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all.
Well, the reason is we gotta have a reason for option number two, right? So in other words, option two is, I propose for instance, I would say I propose we take $2 million out of the transportation budget and the motion passes, and all of a sudden then, instead of sitting around waiting for Jack to recalculate everything, the second option gives us the thing. But I won't make that motion. I'm ready to make an option to motion option one for the reason that we've hit the hard things tonight. Anybody that's going to comment knows that we're talking about positions, because that's 80% of our budget, 78% of our budget. And some of those positions we spoke about this evening, several of them we spoke about this evening that I think we will speak about and listen to community members more so. But I don't have anything specific, which is what I would remove right now from the posted budget. I don't think the posted budget will be the budget that passes, in my personal opinion, at the end, but that's where we are. And so I'm ready to make that motion now, unless, we're still in discussion and we can make that motion and still be in discussion. can't we?
Yes, we, either are, somebody.
So, Mr. Dunn, if you put the first motion up, I'm going to make that motion. I move that the school board vote to post a preliminary 2024-2025 fiscal year budget for public comment with all funds totaling $115,976,482, with a general fund budget of $108,008,631, appropriating $66,179,126 in local taxes and $7,093,067 in state taxes, inclusive of the following deposits and withdrawals to existing funds or expendable trust funds. Deposits: Vocational Capital Reserve Fund for an amount up to $237,586. Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund for an amount up to $1,549,890. Food Service Fund for an amount up to $55,000. Renovation and Maintenance Trust Fund for an amount up to $85,196. And inclusive of the following withdrawals from expendable trust funds to fund appropriations: Instructional Materials Trust Fund for an amount up to $302,500. Health Risk Management Reserve Fund for an amount up to $600,000. School Building Renovation and Maintenance Trust Fund for an amount up to $515,000. Special Education Expendable Trust Fund for an amount up to $350,000. Technology Innovation Trust Fund for an amount up to $900,000.
Well read, sir.
I'm done.
I couldn't do that.
I second the motion.
Seconded by Mr. Cotton. Is there a discussion? Ms. Robinson?
I made a motion to remove the SRO from the budget initially, and that motion did not pass. So I am not allowed to make that motion again. However, I cannot in good conscience, without that data available and without a more robust conversation, vote for any budget that includes an SRO. So I will be voting no on the motion.
I think we had some further discussion, and given the workshop nature of our budget discussions, people can probably repeat the motion.
Okay.
But that being said, I will probably either vote no or vote to table it at this time until after the public hearing. I'm still leaning against, but I think, we will be having a public hearing. There's a lot in this budget that I think continues to need adjustment, and I would like to let the public weigh in and hope they come.
It's just a hill I'm dying on.
That's, you are welcome to die on that hill.
Fair. And I totally agree. I think that I think we're actually going to have several discussions about several positions,
Yes.
the SRO included. I think that it would help to have community members come forward with their opinions about this, because it's not just us in a bubble. So, I think I'm looking forward to some robust discussions.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I've heard both sides. I've heard the folks that, are very concerned about having an SRO in the schools. I've heard folks that say that hopefully we never ever have to use that second skill set you mentioned, but saying, what are the odds of having a violent action ever occur in a public place? Well, we've seen this year is pretty bad so far, and their voices can be heard too. And I hope they come out and voice those opinions, because I am very conflicted and undecided on this particular item, and I'm hoping we hear a lot.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's make this a roll call vote, because we need 5 votes. Yes.
We're going to post this budget.
You're voting to post this budget, essentially.
So everybody can
draft
look
for
at
the
it.
public hearings.
Are we good? It's gonna be way out of order, so get ready, guys. Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Cotton?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
No.
Ooh, wrong
Sorry.
column. That's all right.
I threw
Keep me on my toes. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
And I am a yes, and Ms. Higgins is absent. That motion passes.
That motion passes. Thank you. I believe Ms. Hastings
Yes.
wanted to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to move into non-public under 91-A:3, Section 2, B and C.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Campbell.
C&D?
C and D?
I put that up there because I didn't know. It's from the
It's
slide.
B and C.
But she,
though.
oh,
B and
re-
C.
we'll reflect that, but that's what C is.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
B and C.
B's the hiring of a public employee,
Okay.
if I'm remembering right.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
I will escape out of there and disconnect.
All right, that was
Thank you.
Yep.
made
Okay.
and seconded. Who seconded?
Ms. Campbell.
Ms. Campbell seconded, and it's a roll call.
If you call the roll.
All right, let's do this again. Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Cotton?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
And I am a yes.
With that, I think we are done with the public portion for the evening, and then we will come out and adjourn after the non-public meeting.
Okay.
Can we have a 5-minute?